That is amazing. Thank you. Whoa.
Yeah.
I have chills right now, man.
Are you running a marathon? Oh my god, I could never run a marathon. You sure about that? My god, a marathon is like 42 kilometers, 26 miles. I don't understand those people. That used to be me.
Not anymore. Welcome to the Marathon Podcast. I just got off the call with Alex Baker, Ketchup to Cancer on Instagram, and this is probably the most emotional episode that I've had so far. Alex's, stories, it's insane. He lost his wife to cancer. He changed his life after that from uh, what he called a pretty unhealthy lifestyle and definitely no running to now running marathons all over the world, raising money for cancer research, St. Jude. It's hard to kind of, after a conversation like that, to, I don't know, you can probably tell. I just got off the call, so uh, it just leaves you very reflected. And I'm not gonna encourage you to do anything with the pod today. Today's my encouragement to you is to go support Alex and catch up to cancer. You're gonna learn more about that in the episode. I launched the Marathon Podcast sponsorship last week, and I was saying that that's for professional athletes. I ended up also supporting Alex's cause today, and I hope that you will do the same. And after listening to the episode, I'm sure you'll be inspired to do so. And like you said, whether it's $1, $5, $100, whatever you feel like contributing with, I hope that you will. Yeah, get ready for a little bit of a roller coaster of emotions in this episode. Alex Baker, welcome to the Marathon Podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to spend some time with you today.
Like I told you before, just now before we started recording, you have quite a story. And I was looking at your Instagram, and it's kind of like mixed feelings, right? You have a very inspiring story, but it's also because of something very sad. Will you, before you present yourself, like who you are, just quickly, um, what is kind of like that background and your mission right now?
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram at Ketchup to Cancer. And as you can imagine, cancer is a pretty important part of my story here. So, in 2017, my wife, who was 34 years old at the time, was diagnosed with stage 4 colorectal cancer. And when we found that information out at 2 o'clock in the morning at a hospital, the doctor said, "You have to see an oncologist in the next 48 hours because it's really bad." And that, as you can imagine, just an out of body experience, sitting there in a hospital, having a doctor tell you you have cancer. Um, and to be the caregiver, to be the husband, to be the father of our then 3-year-old son, it it was a wild experience. And we went home and I looked up the survival rate, and it was, over the next 5 years, it was like 15%. And so I knew that day cancer would ultimately kill my wife. And after 16 months of fighting and 50 rounds of chemo, 25 rounds of chemo, like 50 rounds of radiation, multiple surgeries, she passed in February of 2019. And as you can imagine, just telling my then 4-year-old son that his mom had died just destroyed me. And it really woke me up as well of, you cannot let yourself live in this and wallow in it. You need to survive, you need to thrive, and you need to show your son that we can be okay. And so I I started a journey that we'll, I'm sure, get into in health, and I've struggled with my weight for most of my adult life. And so that moment was really a changing point for my journey.
Thanks for sharing that. It's, it's hard to hear. I get emotional myself when you talk about this. Yeah, it's not fun to hear. I'm very happy that we're able to have this chat, and like I know that we're gonna talk about it in a way where obviously the story hasn't ended, but you use this for something good, and it seems like you have a good life today. And it makes me happy to see. But yeah, I am grateful to you for wanting to share this story, because something that I've been thinking about lately, without anything happening in my life, is just like, how do you deal with those things, right? Like, I'm lucky enough to I haven't had to deal with anything like that with any of my very close ones. And um, I think after I found running, at least for me, that kind of changed at least my perspective on a lot of things. It's like, okay, this is probably the best medicine for whatever comes my way. And I feel like you're a great example of that. So, uh, yeah, like you said, we're obviously going to talk about your running journey, how you're now using running for, like, I assume for yourself, but also for others. You're contributing a lot to cancer research. And yeah, like I said, just thank you for sharing your story. So yeah, just wanted to say that. And then if we, backtrack to just Alex, regardless of this story and stuff, like, who are you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I was born and raised outside of Chicago. I'm American. I When I was 15, moved to Indianapolis. Um, my dad got a job promotion, moved us down here, and for most of my life, I've not been super athletic. I did taekwondo as a child before we moved, and then really just started to get involved in my community, in my school community, and my college community. I joined a fraternity, which was something I'd never thought I would do. And it really started to change um, and help me grow and develop. And I learned even more the value of contributing to the world around you and being able to make an impact on others' lives in the fraternity, and it became part of my career for about 14 years. I worked for our headquarters, and I got the opportunity to help young men grow and develop. And that is something that I think was translated really well to eventually becoming a parent and being able to raise he'll be 11 next month, and develop this young man into someone who's caring, somebody who uh, puts others before himself and understands that we have the power to hurt and we have the power to inspire and grow and help, and we can we can choose which path obviously we take. And so for me, like, that's me. I care. I want to love big. I want to share and experience and make a difference in the world. I think is a good way to put it. Um, Outside of that, outside of running, I love to cook. I'm a huge foodie. Finding all of the like best new restaurants in town, as my friends call it, it's my superpower. And so yeah, I like to enjoy and experience life. My late wife really wanted to travel a ton. And so I've started through this running journey being able to travel internationally, which is wildly cool. Something I had not been able to do up to this point. And so yeah, cooking, traveling, running, making a difference in the world is that's Alex.
Gives me hope to listen to you. It's nice to hear, and I think that it's nice for just people listening to this to just hear it too. We do need more love in the world, and I think there's so much more love out there than we kind of see from day to day. It's easy for people to focus on the bad stuff, and Yeah, I love hearing about this. And then you did mention that you were not super active when you like you were maybe when you grew up, but like later on in life you were not. And now you're very active. If you were to kind of just describe your life up until when your wife was diagnosed with cancer and or until she passed away, what was that like?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of, uh, just accepting, like, I'm just gonna be the guy that's gonna gain 10 pounds every year, and that's just gonna be my life, and so be it, and I'm okay with being on the couch, and, it's no, I don't wanna go hiking today because that's way too much work. No, I don't wanna go, walk 2 miles downtown Indianapolis to a thing. No, I want to be have little of inconvenience as I can, right? Um, my late wife w wanted us to be more active, and I had no interest in it at all. So I think a lot of my, you know, life while she was diagnosed, it was focusing on what's the next best thing for the next minute, the next hour, the next 4 hours, because, with her diagnosis and how impactful it was, her cancer was in her colon, her liver, her lungs, and her lymph nodes. So it was pretty metastasized, it was everywhere, and you never knew at any point whether you were going to the hospital 10 minutes later, right? You never knew when something was gonna go sideways, when she was gonna feel run down. We'd have these grand plans to go take our son to the museum or to the zoo or those things, and you never knew. And so for me, it was always stressed, always ready to go, fight or flight. I'm ready to go at any minute to go to the hospital, deal with a thing, right? Whatever that was. And um, you know, as you can imagine, a 3-year-old kid, he he has no idea. Like, mommy's sick, mommy's tired, mommy's in bed. Okay, but he still wants to be a kid, and he still wants to play, and he wants to roughhouse, and he wants to climb on me, and he wants, take me to the park, take me to the zoo, whatever. And it was a wild experience, and I think what I realized is I never took a moment to myself. I never took a moment to go out for a 5-minute walk, to go experience something by myself. I was focused on literally everybody else, work, Amanda, my son, like, never focused in for Alex at all.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of us can, relate to that part of taking care of each others or thinking about others, and then you forget to focus on yourself. And I had several guests on here who's they said that for the longest time they thought that it was a selfish thing to go out for a run because they were thought they were doing it for themselves, but then they realized that this is actually something that I'm doing for everyone else too. Because when I'm
Yep.
running, I'm happier. When I'm running, I'm a better father, mother, wife, husband, and I think that is something that is really important for us to always just keep in mind and know that even in an everyday life where things are chaotic, whether like obviously for you a very extreme situation, but I think that you can kind of use that in other people's lives too without having any extreme things like that. But I think that, and I'm gonna ask you a probably like pretty brutal question on this because you said that you were uh, struggling to like lose weight, or you just accepted that you were gonna gain weight every year. And for me, like as a former athlete, I obviously I always I was pretty fit. Not I was never the kind of person who had that beach body or anything like that, but people wouldn't say that I was big at all. And then there were been times where, especially after I quit, that I gained some weight, and then I immediately felt a bit uncomfortable with that because that wasn't really my identity, and then I tried to lose that weight. And I would say that, like, if I'm honest, that I have a pretty unhealthy body image because I keep trying to get that body that I always wanted, Zac Efron on the
Mhm.
beach kind of thing. But uh, I feel like for me, it's really hard to put myself in what you are describing, right? Like, because of um I don't know, it's hard to accept that part, and I think that a lot of people who haven't found themselves in the situation that you're describing, we might be a bit ignorant to how difficult that is, right? And so if you were to describe that feeling, like, when do you feel like, because now I feel like you changed, made some choices to be healthier. When do you feel like, if you look back, that you first started heading in that wrong, if you can call it the wrong direction, where you wanted things to be just very convenient, or however you
Sure.
described it?
Yeah, I think it probably started in college or shortly after college, and I think it was about chasing other things, right? Like, I wanted to be a leader in the businesses I was working in. I was starting an entrepreneurial experience, as well as a side consulting company, and so I would spend my hours and my time making those decisions instead of the decisions for myself. Like, definitely was not one that would get a lot of sleep, and obviously that is huge for recovery and your wellness just in general. Working until 2 o'clock in the morning and then getting up at 7, 6:30, whatever, like, that was not unheard of. That was a 6 days a week kind of situation. And, I think it was never a priority. And then you wake up one day and you're like, what happened? These pants don't fit anymore. This shirt that felt really comfortable and good last year, a week ago, whatever, insert time period, it just doesn't anymore. And well, I guess I'm just gonna go buy new pants and we'll go up a size and, like, so be it, and then I'll be comfortable and it'll be better. And you just you it's a lot of compromises, right? It's hundreds of little compromises of, "Oh, well, yeah, I'll go for seconds this time," and, "Oh, there's just a little left on the plate. I'll just eat it rather than wasting the food." And, you make a lot of little bad choices, and they add up over time. And, you know, um, when you're working those hours, doing um what I was describing, there's a lot of caffeine, a lot of soda, a lot of in obviously in America, there's tons of soda everywhere, and that is available to just guzzle, what, not gallons, but what I'm getting at here. It's everywhere. We don't traditionally drink a lot of water in America, and so um, you make hundreds of bad choices, and you look up and what happened?
Yeah, thank you. I hope that it's okay that I asked that question. There are two
Yeah, of
reasons
course.
why I wanted to ask that, and one is that I'm not always, or I'm not proud when I say that I'm ignorant to that, because I think it's so hard for people, and that is totally regardless of the situation. It's really hard for people who are not in the same situation as others to kind of understand or uh see why something happened, right? And there can be so many reasons. So that is like one part of it. And then the other is that, like you said, we have careers. There are so many things that we might be fooled into today thinking that is more important than our health. And so
Mhm.
kind of like what you said, you don't really realize that your health is the most important thing. Like, it doesn't matter to your son if you have a very successful business with that, like, a lot of money, a lot of profit, if your body is not functioning well enough to, live long enough or be healthy enough to go with him and do things. And so that is kind of why I wanted to ask that question. And I also then like feel like it's a good transition into when you made that big change, because I know that it didn't happen overnight. You kind of started walking, right? And then that kind of escalated into what you're doing today. And I respect you a lot for that lifestyle change. So will you share a little bit about what made you, you know, healthier? Like, what happened? Do you remember that moment, and how did you go around that?
Yeah, so it started about 4 months after Amanda passed. One of my friends was going to a gym, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna try this. It's a the workout. It sounds insane, but it is a 20-minute workout once a week. It's like super slow reps, 10 seconds up, 10 seconds back, and your muscles are just like super activated through that. And I was like, I can find 20 minutes to myself. I'm a widowed dad, right? I can find 20 minutes in my life once a week to do something. And so I started with that and had huge success. I lost like 30 pounds over the course of a year, and it was fantastic. I was stronger. Like, I could, as my son kept growing, I could still, you know, um, be his jungle gym. He could climb all over me. I could lift him up. I can throw him around, like all the fun stuff you get to do as a dad, right? Um, but I think before that, like, I struggled to do those things. And so I felt really good about that. And then, the global pandemic happened, and my son's daycare had a case um, in early March, and so I pulled him out of daycare, and I was like, I don't I'm not healthy. I don't need to expose us to this, and if it's just gonna be you and me, dude, at home, because we were working at home at that time, let's do it. And so for about 100 days, he and I didn't really leave the house. We'd order delivery, like grocery deliveries, or we'd do grocery pickup where we didn't actually have to go into a store. And then, as you can imagine, 100 days with just you and a 4-year-old boy, like, I was going crazy. And so I said, I'm gonna go outside. I'm gonna take the step. And obviously, we were outside bits and pieces, social distancing, that stuff. But generally, like, I had not done anything super intentional exercise wise. And so, um, I'm from Indianapolis, as I mentioned earlier. We have something here called the Indianapolis 500. It's a huge IndyCar race. Behind it, the whole month of May, there's an experience that we put on here in Indy. We have a huge half marathon that's having its 50th anniversary this year called the Indy Mini. And so the 500 festival was like, we cannot hold the mini this year. So let's do this virtual 500-mile challenge, for tied to the Indianapolis 500. And so I signed up, and I said, I am going to walk 500 miles. And so from the day I started until my birthday that year, was 102 days, and I walked 500 miles over the course of that. And it wasn't every
Wow.
single day, but I started adjusting my life to be able to get 3, 4, 5, 8 miles in and just walk. So
Wow.
that
Yeah,
was the
that's
start of it.
and then you transition, because you have this great introduction of yourself on your Instagram where you can scroll through this carousel of photos, and I thought that was great because it was such an easy way for me to get to know you a little bit. I didn't want to like, get to know everything because I wanted this to be I wanted to get the information here, but I did see that that walking kind of transitioned into more of running. How did that happen, and how did that idea kind of come to to you? How did you start thinking about running? Because it sounds like that wasn't really uh, something that you were thinking about before all this walking.
Yeah, it wasn't at all. I mentioned the Indy Mini, like it is the premier running event here in Indianapolis. And so during the month of May, like it is everywhere. There's promotion everywhere. It's a big thing with the 500. And so like I'd seen it and I used to think for 20 years like I could never do that. That's crazy. Like, those people are nuts. There's no way I could physically go out and run a half marathon. That's insane. Um, and so I find myself just generally in life needing to set goals for myself and be able to work towards something, and it could be short term, a few weeks, it could be a few months, could be a year, could be multi-year. Um, But being goal oriented is something that's important to me, and so I said, "Okay, well, I finished my 500. What's next?" I started thinking, "Man, if I'm walking 8 miles a day, that's taking me like 2.5 to 3 hours to go walk that every day." Like, there's gotta be a better way to do. Oh, yeah, I should try running, and I could run that faster, right, and get the miles in faster, and, Under Armour at the same time had a 100-mile challenge, and so I signed up for that, and over the course of, like, late November, early December, um, I I ran a total of 100 miles. So, it was a lot of 5Ks, just 5K a day kinda thing to get there, maybe one 5-mile day, but, um it was just, again, trying to be intentional, and what I found during the 500 miles is I was more present, I was happier, I was more creative in my job. I was able I I've described it to another friend as, like, I was even all of the time. Like, I didn't have peaks and valleys of emotions, like, you get the same Alex every
Hmm.
day. Well, when I'm exercising, like I have just found a peace in how I react to things, how I parent, how I'm a partner, how I'm an employee, right? It's just even, and I think that experience has been really cool to just like, man, this is good for my mental health, my mental well-being, my professional success. I think a lot of that comes from being able to have that time to myself in my thoughts, grinding out mile after mile, stomp after foot stomp. And it, it was a really, really cool experience to go, you know, it's going to take me 2.5, 3 hours to run 8 miles I could run a 5K in 36 minutes, 35 minute, 34 minute, like, and I could just see the miles, the times getting faster, and man, this is so cool and exciting, and this good goal for me. So that was kind of the start of my running journey. Um, I spent a lot of time walking in a nearby park doing some trail running. So like when I started running, that was where I started my running experience was trail, which was very cool. It's complicated, right? You've got tree stumps and things hidden that you can trip
Yeah.
over, but that was cool. Yeah, and then we I got thinking about like what else could I do? So I can run a 5K consistently and I can get better times and this is exciting and I'm hitting a better mile pace and um I I started running longer distances. Okay, I can run a 5K consistently. Now let me run a 10K. And then a week before the second anniversary of my wife's passing, I try to do something memorable in honor of her on February 5th. That was the day she passed. So the first year I went to New York, and I saw a Broadway play. I went to a restaurant we'd always talked about going to. And the second year, a week before, I ran 10 miles and felt good. And I was like, I feel like I could keep going. And so I decided that on February 5th, 2021, that I would run a half marathon. The dream that I'd had to run the Indy Mini, I would run a half marathon on the anniversary of her passing. And it was a horrendous day. There was ice on the road. It was freezing. It was the dumbest run probably I've ever done, but it it felt so amazing to have that achievement, to look back at the journey that I've been on, and where I was 2 years ago to that day was night and day. I don't recognize old Alex anymore, and I think that is a pretty powerful way to pivot, change, focus on yourself, and ultimately, now do something really cool with it.
Yeah, I'm very happy that that you talk now about Alex, because I feel like in the introduction, and I think that to a lot of people, when something happens like that, and you have a son or like you have kids, there's no way around it. You have to take care of that. You have to take care of your son, and I think it's easy that things become just that you have to take care of the the ones that need it even more than you, or at least like it might look like need it more than you, right? And so with your running, you did touch on it, but how quickly did you start feeling, that change within yourself, and how important do you think it has been for you in terms of dealing with the grief and yeah, that loss?
Yeah, I felt it significantly while I was walking. When I could consistently walk a 5K, 2 miles, even hell, running or being able to walk the first mile, it just it changed everything happening in my head. It changed everything happening in my heart. Um, Clothes started feeling differently, which was a nice bonus. Um, and and I think with running, the sense of achievement to be able to fully run a full mile without stopping was one of my proudest moments. Being able to like take that first step, that first journey, knowing that I walked out that door and I made a decision for myself to invest in me. Um, I don't know. It brought just so much joy and pride to myself to be able to go do a mile, as silly as that sounds. And then being able to go a 5K consistently and a 10K and then 10 miles and then a half marathon, like I it just it completely changed how every part of my life functioned. And so I think I look back a little bit now, and I've logged since July 3rd of 2020 when I took that first step outside walking. I've logged 4,200 miles already, and that
Wow.
feels absolutely insane. Uh, I don't know in the 34 years before that I'd ever walked 4,200 miles, just like ever. And to be able to do that in 6 years feels absolutely insane. And I just I can't believe it's real most of the time, I think is probably the way to say it.
I really hope that the listeners, people listening to this can take, because whether they are or have been in the same situation as you were, I think this, it might be a cliche to say, but it's just like a metaphor for everything in life, of things seeming fairly impossible, or you might not even feel like doing it, but then you mm, take that first step, like you said. And I have so much respect for you and what you're saying, what you're talking about here. I don't know if you know who Herm runs on Instagram, like who he is, but he's no, you should look him up. We were talking about it because he had kind of like you, a very unhealthy lifestyle, and he started running. He was like genuinely worried about his girlfriend when she was gonna run a marathon, because he thought that that is a life-threatening thing to do, because that
Mm,
was how dangerous he
yeah.
thought a marathon would be for your health. But what he told me was that it took him, I think, 3 months of running before he even felt a little bit of a, like, okay, this was okay. Not good, but okay. And
Right.
that's something that I can't relate to 3 months. I know how it is to go out for that first run after having been sick for a while, and I know that that sucks. But then I expect that
Mhm.
within that first week, things start feeling okay again. And so, like, last question before we start talking about your marathon journey and all of the good things that you've been doing with your running. Uh, how long did it take for you from, that first run to you actually, say, enjoyed it when you were out running?
Um, I that was a very good question. I think the buildup that I had of 500 miles walking really helped to be able for that running journey that I I don't remember specifically like, "Oh, man, I'm hurting for 2 days because I run," right? Like, I had already put 500 miles on in 102 days, and that's like, you're building your muscles, you're working the running physiological pieces of your body, of your muscles. Um, so I don't remember running being super hard. I remember I think once I got to be able to run a 5K consistently, um, that is when it probably felt okay. So I would guess that's within the first month of like when I was running those 100 miles, because 5K was like the consistent run that I would do. I say that only because I had logged so many intentional miles beforehand that running wasn't as big of a challenge. I think is like lacing up your shoes the first time and going for a run the first time.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
walking is very very good for you too. And if that's the journey you want to start running, take the first step and go walk. Go walk a mile. That's, 20 some odd minutes. Go walk 2 miles. Walk 1.5, right? Just build your endurance a little bit, especially if you were like me and you were just sitting on the couch every day. That is a huge reason why I think I'm able to do what I do now is because I built a base not running, but by walking and just having the consistent exercise that it was easier, I think, to transition to running.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that I kind of forget when we're talking about this, and when I ask that question, is that most likely back then, even walking for you when you started walking was all it was exercise. Like for you now, I'm sure that if you go out walking, it's not like you think of that as, oh, now I'm working out, but it was probably like that in the beginning. So maybe that is the best way if you find yourself in a situation that you were in, where you were not used to working out and you were heavier than you were used to being when you worked out last time,
Mhm.
maybe whatever, then walking is a great way to transition into it. One, because it's probably gonna feel better and not as exhausting, but also, like you said, build that muscle, build that foundation for you to be able to run without getting injured immediately. Because I assume
Yeah.
that if you went straight into running, it would have been a bigger chance or higher risk of getting injured.
Yeah. I agree 100%.
So you did that half marathon, and then
Yeah.
uh, you know, you got into the marathons, and uh, then you started running for something bigger than yourself. How how did that come around? Like, did you first do a marathon for yourself, or did you immediately start with the fundraising?
Yeah, so after doing the half on the passing of her, on her the anniversary of her passing, I actually decided to do the Indy Mini. They had a virtual version of the race in May, and so I ran it, and I did that as, it's actually now my half marathon PR. I finished in 1:59:52 or something like that, which was
That's good, dude.
fantastic.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
is
thank
good.
you.
Yeah,
And it just I think what that did for me is, like, I'm I'm not terrible at this. Like, I'm not elite, right? I'm not gonna be winning any races, but, like, I felt good. I hosted a dinner party that night for friends and family. Like, I felt good enough to just exist, and, like, I was proud of myself to do that. And so I set my sights on, like, what was next. And the next year I actually ran the Indy Mini in person. Again, that's a very cool experience. You get to run around the actual track of the Indianapolis 500. It's like 2 miles on the track, which is cool. Uh, and then I was like, what if, hear me out. What if I ran a marathon? And I went through a training cycle, and I was like, this is so good. This is fantastic. I was at my my I was at a half marathon long run. So the first time I'd kind of gotten to that in the training cycle. I was about 10 miles in, and I heard a pop, or felt a pop. And I called my girlfriend at the time, fiance now, but I called her and I was like, I need you to pick me up. I cannot make it the rest of the way. And because I was miles away from the house at that point. Um, and so she came and picked me up, and I I just my legs were hurting, and I couldn't, like, I couldn't run more than a 5K without being in pain. And so I was like, I am going to just take a break. Like, I want to run a marathon, but I cannot injure myself more. So I took 45 days off from running, and I went out.
How was
I like
that?
to,
How was that for you, having to take
uh,
45 days off?
yeah, very rough, because, like, I was exercising. I was out running 6 days, maybe 7 days a week, like, consistently. Um, and I was just like jonesing. I don't know how else to describe it. Of, like, I was aching for a run, but I had to keep telling myself, like, don't make it worse. Like, you've got to take care of yourself if this is your goal. And so I like to, during my training cycles, do one race, as kind of the warm up run, because I typically am a runner by myself. I do the 4 a.m. runs. I'm not with a running group. It is just me in my neighborhood on the sidewalk going. And so I like to do one race. So there was another race here in Indy. It was a half marathon. So I did that. I had a knee brace on, and I just, like, I finished. I was like, if I can finish this thing, I'm gonna try a marathon. I'm gonna actually try this marathon. So um, I ran Indy Monumental in November of 22, um, and I got to the halfway point, and that was literally the longest I'd ever run in my life. So every step was the longest I'd ever run. And so I kept grinding. I definitely was walking the back half, a good portion of it. I had the endurance, but man, was my leg hurting. And I was exhausted. I didn't understand fueling. I didn't understand what running more than a half marathon was because I'd never done it. I'd never experienced it in training. As a marathoner, half marathons become like your minimum for the back half of training. And so I had no idea, um, no experience with any of this. And so when my girlfriend, again at the time, fiance now, caught up with me with my son at the finish line, I was like, "You ran a marathon. That's amazing. Now you know what it's like for the next time." And I looked at her. Are you nuts? Next time? Next time? And I couldn't fathom this idea of like doing that to my body again. And,
That sounds
I
like it.
slammed, yeah, I slammed a couple pieces of pizza. And like I was physically in shock, like, cause I definitely did not fuel the last half of the race and was just starving and my body didn't know what had happened to it. Um, And she now likes to retell the story that it took about 6 days, for me to start looking at other races and, "Well, what if I did this marathon? And what about that marathon? And maybe I could this, and maybe I can that." And, uh, I then
It's kind
came
of
to her.
I feel like
Go
it's
ahead.
kind of like when people drink alcohol, they get very drunk, they have the worst hangover ever, and they're like, "I'm never drinking again." And then come Friday or Saturday, and people are out
Right.
drinking again. That's
Yep.
usually what I compare the marathon to, because for a few days there, and I don't know if you still have that feeling, but I do have that feeling. I'm like, "Why am I doing this?" But I know that I'm gonna do
Yes.
another one, but it's not very tempting.
Yes. Agreed 100%. That is how I feel. That's a good comparison as well. Um,
Sorry, I interrupted
so
you. Keep going.
no, yeah, you're good. So I then looked and I was like, what if I run the New York City Marathon? I don't know, maybe like how cool would that be to run the New York City Marathon? And during this time I also was looking at Boston. Boston was virtual I'm trying to remember, I don't remember exactly which year it was, but there was a year it was virtual and I almost applied for it to do it virtually. But I didn't for whatever reason. But I was like, New York City, like, I love New York. I love visiting. I don't know. That would be a really cool experience. And then I was like, oh man, there are these 6 major marathons, like, could
Oh, yeah.
run the world. And wow, wouldn't that be cool? And I knew based on my marathon time from Indy, I would not qualify for any of these things. And I realized, along the way that fundraising is how I can fight back against cancer. Fundraising is how this thing that completely wrecked my life, I can take it and make it something meaningful, impactful, and hopefully fund research that beats this thing. Because if you're impacted by cancer, and so many, I mean, millions and millions of us are in some way, shape, or form, like the patient, they go through a horrendous time. And I think people forget a lot about the caregivers and the family members who are there in the hospital, whose lives are uprooted, who survive afterward, and have to deal with the grief and the struggle. And so I was like, I'm gonna make this my mission. I am going to raise money, and I'm gonna run the 3 US majors before I turn 40. Mind you, I was almost 39 years old at this time.
Wow.
I'm gonna do it.
Wow.
And so in my professional life, I used to work with St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, which is they do pediatric cancer treatments. They also have a huge research wing that um, funds research across the world and shares that research. They also do something amazing that they make sure that no family ever receives a bill for treatment, housing, travel, or food. As an aside, after 2 weeks of Amanda's first treatment, we got a bill in here in America for $400,000. And I didn't know what to do,
Wow.
and to be able to be battling to go through all of that and then have a $400,000 bill show up. It crushed me mentally. And St. Jude doesn't have that. Like, if your child is there at St. Jude, you focus on them. You focus on their treatment. You focus on letting them be a kid. Uh, and St. Jude's got it. And that mission spoke to me a lot to help ease that burden for others. So I ran the New York City Marathon for St. Jude. I raised $6,000 through that. And then I applied through 5 or 6 charities, and I was able to get a spot with the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. I was listening to your episode with the race director of Boston, and
Right. Yeah.
the Jimmy Fund he mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
That was the same group that I ran with from Dana-Farber, and I raised $21,500 to run the
Wow.
Boston Marathon. And then I went back with St. Jude and ran and raised $3,500 for the Chicago Marathon. I didn't do it before I turned 40. I was 40 and 1 day old because the marathon was on Sunday and my birthday was on Saturday. But
Dude,
close
how
enough.
could you? That's bad.
Right, embarrassing.
No, wow.
Yeah,
Hearing this, it's giving me the chills. I'm so impressed. First of all, like that bill. Uh, in Norway, we have free healthcare for everything. So for us, it's
amazing.
yeah, it is amazing, and it's kind of unbelievable when you hear about this. I mean, my fiance is from the US. So she's told me about the stories. It's kind of like just giving birth is expensive, right?
Yes,
And so. Uh, but hearing about St. Jude's and like what they're doing there and what you've been doing, it's amazing. And uh, this is a great story. And then I'm a little bit curious. We're going to talk a little bit more about this, but I'm curious about where this ketchup bottle comes into the picture because
yeah,
I know that that is kind of your branding, right?
yeah,
And that one, I was thinking about it, it's genius because you're combining something that is just like this is super weird, and and then something very serious and a great cause. So why don't you say or share something
yeah.
um about that?
Yeah. So Ketchup to Cancer is a pretty recent invention. After raising 30 some odd $1,000 over the course of 12 months, I, I went to the next phase and I'm like, okay, well, I've done the American 3. Now it's time to go international. I'm going to do Berlin. I'm going to do London. I'm going to do Tokyo. Um, I signed up again with St. Jude, committed to $6,500 or $6,200 with them. And I was starting, I was doing fundraising and I was struggling to get people to give. Like 30 plus $1,000 in 12 months is a lot of money to raise. I didn't have any major contributors. Just generally, I had a matched gift from my work, which was absolutely fantastic. But outside of that, the rest of that was like $25 gifts, $50 gifts, the occasional $100 gift. Um, so I was doing Berlin and I was struggling. I was not getting to the dollars I was expecting as quickly. And as a charity runner, when you sign up, you give them your credit card. And if you raise $0, your credit card is hit for whatever that amount you're committing to. So Boston, like that's $10,000, $12,000 commitment. That's just going to hit that card regardless. So I'm starting to get a little worried of, am I going to be out $3,000, $4,000 to run Berlin and like
So
St.
let me get this straight. So
Yeah,
whatever you say that is your target or like what, yeah, is that is what they will withdraw from your credit card. And then you either have that money already, so you know that you're good, or you have to spend the next months or whatever. Uh, okay, cool. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's cool. It is crazy, but
Yes.
also I guess like puts a lot of pressure on you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to get that straight, and for the
Yeah.
listeners. Okay, keep
Yeah.
going.
No, that. Yeah. So Boston, like, a great example. Like, I committed to $10,000 for them. I gave Dana Farber my credit card, and if I raised $5,000, they'd charge my card for the remaining 5,000. And so, like, most of these, the majors have a minimum commitment. Obviously, you can go above that, right, and raise more, but if you don't hit that minimum, that's you're just you're paying that out of your own pocket. And so,
Oh
I got
wow.
yeah, I got worried in Berlin, and I'm just like, I don't. How am I going to hit this? This is concerning to me. And so, um, a quick aside to get back to the story is, so my fiance and I and our kids, we went to a 4th of July parade here in the town we live in. And it was raining, and it was a terrible experience. And we swore there was somebody in the parade handing out ketchup packets to the kids, and we're like, man, that would be really funny. Like, could you imagine somebody handing out ketchup packets at a parade? That's real funny. And then that idea just kind of sat. And about a month before the July 4th parade this year, I looked it up, and I was like, what does it cost to get into this parade? The answer was $50.
That's pretty
Okay,
cheap compared to everything
pretty
else.
right, right. So $50, okay, well, maybe, I don't know, we could this would be funny, like, $50, we'll just hand out ketchup, like, whatever, okay. And I was out mowing our yard. I was like, "How do I make this something that's relevant? How do I make this something that helps me with fundraising?" Pushing the mower, ketchup, 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 ketchup to cancer, ketchup to cancer. And I stop the mower and I run into the house and I say to my fiance, "Ketchup to cancer." And she looks at me like I'm nuts. Like, "What are you talking about?" And I said it slower. Catch up to cancer. And then it clicked.
So it's like the joke.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And so we committed to the bit, and I purchased 5,000 ketchup packets. We started making aprons with a ketchup to cancer logo on it. And we legitimately handed out 5,000 ketchup packets with a QR code to donate to my fundraiser for St. Jude. And I officially have committed to $26,200, obviously the marathon distance, to St. Jude to run Berlin, London, and Tokyo. And so that day I raised $1,200 just from that parade. And I had started an Instagram, like a week before. And since then, it has just blown up. This amazing, ridiculous idea that, side note, I hate ketchup. I think it's disgusting.
Yeah, I was
I
gonna ask
do
you
not,
about that because I
yeah,
thought I saw that, and that's the irony in this. I think it's
right,
that you hate it, but it's still a part of
yes,
your success.
I know. Yeah, like, I get some of my friends, send me pictures of, like, ketchup, um, toys, or, like, my fiance showed up with banana ketchup. Like, ketchup is now becoming, like, a part of my life, and, like, I want no part of consuming ketchup, but I don't know. This thing is fun. It's ridiculous. I now have a, mascot called Catchy. The kids named him Catchy. Um, and we're just taking this and spreading some joy, spreading some laughter, and making it something important and impactful, and trying to make a difference in the world. And $26,200, I think, is a good way to start that adventure.
Yeah, that's great. And you did when you wrote to me. Now I don't remember the numbers, but you did write to me how much you've raised in total. How much is that?
Yeah, so right now I'm just shy of $40,000, and then with London, London is a $10,000 commitment. Tokyo is also a $10,000 commitment. So I'll be more than I think more than $60,000 all in on the six majors.
Wow. And are you doing Tokyo next year in March
Uh,
or is
in 27 is
27?
I yeah been
Okay,
working to make sure that that happens as well.
cool. And the
Yeah.
contributors are there like is it mainly private like people or do you have companies supporting this too?
Yeah, I've not yet had company support. This has mostly been individual contributors that are
Well,
making.
then I'm gonna give you the first. The Marathon Podcast is gonna support you with $1,000.
Oh my god,
Yep, $1,000.
that is amazing. Thank you. Whoa,
Yeah,
I have chills right now, man.
yeah. No, we're gonna make that happen. $1,000 from the Marathon Podcast to you. This is
Ah,
amazing. I'm
thank
just
you.
blown away by everything that you do, and yeah,
Thank you
that's
so much.
yeah. No, I'm just sitting here thinking about everything that you do, and the challenges that you've been through, and the like your story, your journey, and uh, if we were to like track this a little bit back to you again as an
Yeah,
individual and your running, because I feel like now we skipped from you not being able to really run to you just fundraising and doing a lot of marathons all over the world.
yeah.
So how has your personal marathon journey been if you look away from the fundraising, but just the running part?
Yeah, it has been very physically taxing as you can imagine, right? 3 marathons in a year uh, was a lot for my body, right? I'm not your typical skinny looking runner, right? Even today, is even after all the weight I've lost. Um, and so I actually have been through physical therapy 4 times since kind of that original injury I described here, where I got picked up. Um, and it's been a slog, you know, running the races. It seems like I keep every year I run, the marathon temperature just gets hotter and hotter. I'm not an A corral, B corral. I'm like a K corral kind of guy, um, and so like Berlin was. It was 81 when 81 degrees Fahrenheit when I crossed the
Way too
start
hot.
line. Way too hot, and Berlin specifically was just physically a horrendous race for me. I got sick, I threw up multiple times on the course. I've never done that before. Like, it was a bad day for me. Um, but what was important, and I think what I take pride in now, is I did not give up when it was obnoxiously hard and I wanted to quit for hours, and I just keep moving. I say it a lot to friends and in Instagram posts and stuff. Forward is a pace, and that is what I think a lot of my life has, since Amanda's passing, has been, is forward. I'm not moving on. I'm moving forward, and I, I think as I look at my marathon journey, that's that's what's important. It's take the next step, take the next, because I don't know when this journey is gonna end, when my running journey is end. I think my marathon journey will end after Tokyo, um, but I don't think my running journey is gonna end, and I sure hope that Ketchup to Cancer doesn't end after Tokyo either, because it is one of the most fun things that I've been able to do, of just ridiculous. If you check out my Instagram, like, once I fundraised that 6,500 or 6,200, excuse me, for Berlin, the kids pied me with ketchup. And like, who does that? I don't know. I do that, and why not? So yeah, that I think forward being a pace is a lot of how I've just gotten through the marathons. And I'm not setting PRs, every race. New York was my marathon PR. Since then, it's not been as good, but I've hired a coach. A coach helped me get through New York, and knowing what I went through Indy Monumental. My coach, Rachel Michelle Running, has been fantastic to keep me consistent, help me rest, like take time for myself and sit on the couch and not go run. Um, yeah, I'm proud of myself for going out and doing it no matter what time I finish in, because 2019 Alex never would have done that. And
It's
forward is my
beautiful.
pace.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And you did mention that, you were very goal oriented and you like to have those. Have you had that also with, times PRs with the marathon? Is that something that has been a big thing for you?
It definitely was in New York. In Indy, my goal was to finish. I didn't care if it was 3 hours or if it was 6 hours or 8 hour, like, just cross the finish line. And so that was where I was at with that one. New York, I'd hired a coach, I'd been more consistent, I'd been investing time in healing myself through physical therapy, um, and I got the marathon PR for me, and I I was able to walk afterward. I was able to, like, st I wasn't laid up for 2 days. Like, in Monumental, I was laid up for 2 days. I just couldn't move. And now I can run a marathon. A couple hours later, like, I feel pretty good. And so, though again, my race times are not always what I want, and I've just come to accept, like, just finish. That is the goal. Who cares about what time it is? If you finish,
Right.
you're a marathoner.
Yeah, yeah. Beautiful. And then I have a couple of questions, and they're not super running related, I guess. And that is, you did mention that you now have a fiance, and what does your life look like today? Because when we started this conversation, we obviously got to hear the very sad story
Yeah,
about your wife who passed away, but it sounds like things
yeah,
are fairly good now.
yeah. Yeah, so, amazingly, let's see, he was 5, maybe 6 at the time. We went to the zoo, here in Indianapolis, and we had a bunch of kind of mishaps that happened in our life that day. Like, I had a call that caused me having to, like, wait outside a work call, and you know, we decided to go this way instead of that way at the zoo that day. Um, and my son walks into the snake exhibit and looks at this little girl next to him. And in that second, the two of them decided to be friends. And continued down the next hallway, and we're talking. And this is in the middle of COVID pandemic, so everybody's wearing masks, right? And I'm just like, who is this little girl my son is walking around with? What is happening? And I look up and I see a woman who is doing the same thing. Like, who is this? Who is this person my daughter is talking to? And we go out and we eventually were like, she introduces herself and is like, "Hi, I'm Lindsay, and this is my daughter." And I was like, I'm Alex, and this is my son." And like, do they know each other? I'm like, no, this is they just met, just there. And uh, luckily, as we were leaving the exhibit, in the back of my head, I said, screw this up, don't screw this up, don't screw this up." "Hey, so, do you think maybe I could, like, grab your number and maybe we could do a play date or something? Like, how do I not mess this up?" And she tells the story that she was completely oblivious that a guy was, like, actually asking for her number. And we went our separate ways. We ran into each other later at the zoo, and then, we got stuck under an awning because it was downpouring for like an hour. So her and I got to talk for an hour while the kids just ran around and played and got to know each other a little bit. And yeah, 5 years later now we're engaged. And the thing when the girls came over for the first time, the four of us sat on the couch and read a story together that my son loved. Um, it's called The Book with No Pictures. It's a really funny kids book where it just makes adults say really ridiculous things. And the four of us were sitting at the couch together, and I felt like a family again, and it just this is it. She's it. And yeah, so 5 years later, here we are.
Uh, there's this beautiful, touching story. And when you're talking about this, family, your son, uh, I can't help but also be curious about the way that you now, if you look at the way you looked at parenting before you started running compared to now. I mean, like the lifestyle that you are kind of, I guess, passing on to him. What is that like?
Yeah, I think he understands and appreciates having goals, understands and appreciates chasing dreams. I think he understands and appreciates how important it is to take care of yourself. And the thing I haven't mentioned is the struggle with running, the struggle with marathon training, especially as kind of a back of the pack runner, if you will, is it takes a lot of time to train for a marathon, right? To
Mhm, mhm.
when you're putting up 2.5 hour marathon times, 3 hour marathon times, a 20-mile run is like a half marathon for me, right? I got twice that in some cases, and so like my I did 19 miles in 4 hours. That was like my max training run this year for Berlin, and so that takes a whole toll on the family.
Yeah,
And so the thing that's important to me is to be present. And so to to run a 4 hour, 19 miles for 4 hours, you start at 3 o'clock in the morning. You start to make sure that the family, you are present for the family when they're present. And so I think that's another lesson that he's learned is that being there and showing up to all of the things matters. And I lost that at some point. He while I was working, I used to travel a lot for work. After Amanda passed, and so there was 1 month that I was home for 4 nights in a month, and he told his teacher that I don't live at home anymore because dad's never
wow,
there. And
wow.
and that was a wake up, a different wake up, right? And since that moment, I'm at every event I will go out of my way to be at every event and to make sure dad is present because you, my son, matter.
That's great. Thank you so much, Alex, for everything that you've shared. One thing, and maybe one of the most important questions that I'll ask here is obviously how people can contribute to you and your fundraising.
Yeah. So definitely follow my journey on Ketchup to Cancer on Instagram. That's the primary platform I'm on. You can also make a donation to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital at ketchuptocancer.com. That's ketchupto cancer.com. Every dollar makes a difference. A contribution of even $5 helps the hospital, helps to fund research, helps to fund patient care. They do amazing things to make sure children feel like kids. You don't transfer at St. Jude from room to room in a hospital bed. You transfer in a little red wagon. And kids can be kids. They have prom for the older kids that um, are going through cancer treatments there. You can make a huge difference with even a single dollar. So Ketchup to Cancer on Instagram and ketchuptocancer.com. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I hope that the listeners feel the same way as I do. I didn't know that I was gonna, you know, contribute when we started this call. I recently, like last week, started this initiative that's called the Marathon Podcast Sponsorship, which is meant to sponsor professional athletes. But I feel like this is a much better cause to support. So I'm gonna, you're gonna be one of the professional athletes who will be supported through this. So we'll just talk about the details after. But
Yeah.
I'm
Thank
happy to
you.
contribute with $1,000 to your cost. So
That's
thank you,
amazing.
Alex, and
Yes.
thank you so much for guesting the Marathon podcast. Good luck with everything with London and Tokyo. Or yeah, good luck.
Thank you.
I guess there's not much more to say than thank you. Like it's I'm kind of left a bit speechless, and thank you, Alex, for being so open about your story, your journey, and also thank you for everything that you do. Like Alex said, most of us will be affected by cancer in one way or the other at some point, and yeah, just I really encourage you guys to also contribute to Alex's fundraising. So that's it for the Marathon podcast. I guess in a lot of ways uplifting, because the story and the journey that Alex is on is now pretty good and nice one, but it left me with some thoughts. I'm sure it will for you too. So thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you in the next episode. You listen to the Marathon Podcast, brought to you by Wall Studio.